Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate, heading back down to the Big 12 between two teams that don't look now 2-1 in conference play. West Virginia coming off just a heartbreaking loss on the road against Houston. We picked them to go on the road and win. Probably should have won that game. Outgained Houston 546 yards to only 393. Some special team stuff that we'll get into. Still having a good season, still surprising a lot of people across the country. And you look at Oklahoma State. 3 weeks ago, I thought this team was dead in the water. And Oklahoma State fans, I know I picked them to lose back-to-back weeks in Stillwater. Mike Gundy pulls back-to-back games off, sitting at 4-2 right now. These are two programs that are surprising a lot of people across the country. Really excited to get into this matchup. Now, before we do, again, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support that you guys have shown for all of these game breakdowns. It truly does mean a lot. I love breaking these games down, talking the matchups, but the best part about it is talking ball with you guys in the comment section. So one, if you do enjoy the content, you want to support the boys, consider subscribing to the channel, but more importantly, let me know in the comment section who you guys are rocking with, keys to the game, players to watch, picks, and predictions. Without further ado, let's get into this. And I want to start with this West Virginia offense because it's hard to spin that game Thursday night in a positive light. That being said, this West Virginia offense through the air woke up. And I don't know what happened, but I thought Garrett Green, outside of the boneheaded penalty at the end of the game, Garrett Green looked great, right? 20 of 38, 391 yards. We've been kind of calling for, all right, West Virginia's identity is to run the football. Can you hit those explosive plays through the air? That's exactly what they did against Houston. Wide receivers stepping up, starting to play better. But again, the drops have been a problem. Devin Carter emerging as that true wide receiver one, which in the preseason, that's what we were saying. This is a big, athletic, fast dude that can work down the field. Had some issues with drops. I think he's starting to play his best football. But overall for West Virginia, the offensive performance has to give West Virginia fans a lot of optimism through the rest of the slate. Because we said if this West Virginia team can get a little bit more two-dimensional, teams were just not respecting their ability to attack that deeper third and throw the football. That's going to open it up in the run game as well. I mean, you saw a lot of loaded boxes from Houston and West Virginia. They made him pay. And so teams like Oklahoma State, when you're prepping for West Virginia, you're seeing the threat to pass on the film. I think that's going to help their run game too, which really was not good against Houston. You got to shout out some of those guys up front for Houston, really game wreckers. I know West Virginia was missing a few guys, Wyatt Millam on the offensive line. But my overall take for this West Virginia team, especially on offense, is they were moving the football. And you had a dropped touchdown that went back the other way for an interception. That loss against Houston was anything but on the offense. This was a team that finally showed some juice through the air. And if you're a West Virginia fan, you have a lot of optimism kind of going into this game, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And looking at Oklahoma State's defense, they got some dudes. Like, they've been turning the ball over the last couple of weeks, which, again, Kansas just threw for 400-plus yards on Oklahoma State, but they were able to play well in the red zone, force some turnovers. That's been kind of the recipe for Oklahoma State. You look at the front seven, Colin Oliver doesn't get a ton of attention in terms of the Big 12 landscape. He's one of the best edge rushers that you see in this conference. 23% pass rush win rate, really has the ability to take over a game and kind of wreck a game. And if Wyatt Millam is not back, you're kind of looking at Colin Oliver to maybe take advantage of that offensive line. Now, I will say, the backup left tackle Malone, I thought he looked really good against Houston. I like this West Virginia offensive line. I didn't think they had their best performance. But Colin Oliver on the defensive side of the ball, he's really started to turn it up. And he's a guy that when you're going into this game, you want to make sure you want to make sure you know where Colin Oliver is. They like to line him up in different spots. He has the ability to kind of wreck a game for Oklahoma State on the defensive side of the ball. Now, Oklahoma State on the offensive side of the ball, 2 weeks ago, we said Oklahoma State needs to find their identity. And Mike Gundy even got up in the press conference and kind of said a very similar thing. We want to be a team that runs the football. In the beginning of the year, they were playing quarterback roulette, had no rhythm on offense, and that's why you saw the losses to South Alabama and Iowa State. And all of a sudden, at home against Kansas State Friday night, I think they kind of took a look at this team and said, we got to get it to our playmakers. And man, is Ollie Gordon really stepped up. You look at that game against Kansas last Saturday, 168 rushing yards, 116 receiving yards, almost 300 all-purpose yards for Ollie Gordon. Sometimes college football is not that complicated of a sport. You guys have heard me say this. You find your playmakers and you get them the football. Ollie Gordon is the playmaker for Oklahoma State on the offensive side of the ball. You got to get him the rock. What is he, 218 pounds? Dude runs extremely hard, very tough to bring down. He's a guy you want to make opposing defenses tackle 25-plus times a game. He has that body to do it. Mike Gundy said it in the press conference. Them having that offense go through Ollie Gordon, I think, has been massive in terms of this Oklahoma State offense finding their identity. Second thing, finally going with the quarterback. You all know how I feel about the quarterback roulette system. It's not great. I don't think it gives the offense a good enough continuity, a good enough consistency. Alan Bowman, although is not an all Big 12 caliber quarterback, he's an experienced guy. I know him from his time at Michigan. He's seen a lot of football. He's played in a lot of football. And finally going with Alan Bowman, I think, helps massively. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you've seen back-to-back best performances from Oklahoma State once they said, hey, Alan Bowman, you're the guy. And so this Oklahoma State team, there's 2 weeks ago, we said it was a vibes pick. We want Kansas State to cover the 11.5 points because you look at that Oklahoma State team coming off losses to South Alabama and Iowa State and said, I don't know where this program is going. And Mike Gundy, like he always seems to do, just really has figured it out. And this Oklahoma State team is playing their best football, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the last 2 weeks. Now, West Virginia on defense, not a good performance against Houston. And it's hard to get on West Virginia's defense too much because they've won a lot of games on the back of the defense. Take a look at Donovan Smith's numbers. He won 21 of 27, 250 yards, 4 touchdowns. They were giving up the big play through the air. This Houston offense is good. They have one of the better receiving rooms, I think, in the Big 12. And it was kind of a nightmare matchup because West Virginia was down, 3 or 4 starters in the back end. Beanie Bishop's been their solid guy all year. I don't think he played particularly good against Houston. It was a bad performance from West Virginia on the defensive side of the ball. That being said, the injuries in this back end, it's just when you have at the college football level and you have injuries, let's say in NFL where you can go into free agency and get some talent and sign them off or go trade for player. Like when you go into a season, you have your guys, and if they get hurt, you got to scramble and try to figure out who can play. West Virginia is trying to do that in the back end, and I'm not trying to make excuses for West Virginia losing that football game against Houston, but the amount of injuries they've suffered in the back end of this defense, it's a lot. And West Virginia is going to have to do a really good job. They had a few extra days playing Thursday night to try to figure out, hopefully get some guys back, but just try to figure out who's going to be your playmakers and guys that you can count on in that back end. West Virginia, now going to the pick here. West Virginia, 3.5 point favorites, 2.5 to 3.5 point favorites, depending on where you get your lines at home here. The vibes play, and this you're going to get a really good feel for Neil Brown and the culture, and I think he's done a good job. I know a lot of people have been critical of Neil Brown. I think he's coached really well. This is not the most talented team in the Big 12, and they've won a lot of football games. It hasn't been exactly pretty, but they're figuring it out. And I think they went into this season with the chip on the shoulder a little bit, right? Being picked to finish last in the Big 12, 14th. I think Neil Brown can do it. He's got the extra couple days from playing Thursday night. You're going to get a good feel of what the culture is like with this West Virginia team coming off a heartbreaking loss against Dana Holgorsen in Houston. I like West Virginia to battle back. And I've said I'm not going to pick against Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Well, this game is played in Morgantown, and this Oklahoma State team is a lot better than I thought it was. And I'm wrong on them, but I do like this West Virginia team. I like this spot, a couple extra days off at home. Give me West Virginia to win this game. But again, you're going to learn a lot about both of these teams. If Oklahoma State can do it 3 games in a row, you got to respect what they can be in the Big 12. And West Virginia, you're going to learn about the culture here if Neil Brown can rally the troops and get them back playing winning football. Both teams 4-2, 2-1 in conference play. This is going to be a really fun one. I don't feel great about taking West Virginia because I do think Oklahoma State has been playing some really good football. But this one is certainly going to be on my TV. Very excited for it. Appreciate you guys checking the boys out. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.